The Mobula7 is right up there at the top of the line micro quads, alongside with other drones such as the Eachine Trash Can, Mobula7, Snapper 7 and others. Being the latest and greatest quad in Happy Models lineup means it comes with the best overall specs, but it also does something that none of these other micro drones listed above do. It records 1080p 60fps video. The Mobula7 HD falls into a class of microquads called Cinewhoops, which stems from the fact that it carries capabilities to record 1080p video at 60 fps. To achieve that, it uses a Cadex Turtle V2 camera. As such, this quad targets a specific audience, people to whom recording high-definition footage is important, and given that you can't really carry a GoPro on top of a micro drone, you are stuck with the option of using an FPV camera that doubles in functionality as a high-def video recorder. Really cool. Now, I do say that as a fan of such cameras. In fact, I've been using Runcam Split 2 and Runcam Split Mini for a while now, and for my needs, those cameras are enough. I get fairly crisp 1080p 60fps footage to review my flights or to upload to YouTube. However, the cool thing about the Mobula7 HD is that it is a micro quad, and that means it comes with all the safety that comes with a micro quad. You have prop guards. The chance of you doing damage to yourself or other people is nearly negligible, but of course please don't try. In turn, this means that you can fly this in parks without being a menace to society. Inside the box, we find the Mobula7 HD as expected, a manual, one 3S battery, and a couple of packages with more stuff inside. One of the packages contains a controller for the Cadex Turtle FPV camera. The other one, the more or less regular stuff for a micro quad: screwdriver, prop remover tool, some extra screws, 4 spare props, completely different set than the ones that you already have installed, and an XT30-2 PH 2.0 connectors. If we quickly go over the components, we'll notice that the Mobula7 HD comes with a Crazy BF4 Pro V2 flight controller that takes in anywhere between a 1S and a 3S battery. You can choose whether you want the flight controller to have a built-in FrSky or FlySky receiver, or no receiver at all if you want to install your own. And the board has a 5 amps 4-in-1 ESC. The VTX is a 5.8 GHz 40 channel one with a power range of 25 to 200 milliwatts and can be adjusted. The motors are the EX1102 10,000 kV motors, but depending on when you get your quad, those could already have been changed to the 9,000 kV version, as there have been reports of boards being fried if people are using the 10,000 kV motors and not limiting the throttle while flying on a 3S battery. However, if you're planning to just fly 2S, you're totally fine. The main star of the show here, however, is the camera. That's the Cadex Turtle. You can check the link in the description for the full details on the specs, but it's worth mentioning that the FPV feed is clear and the HD recording is pretty decent too. Just having a 1080p 60 fps recording off of a micro drone is something that is quite spectacular to have nowadays, and it's a definitely great time to get into FPV. I didn't really have to do much in terms of setup when I first tried the Mobula7 HD, which is definitely a good thing. I wanted to get a feel of how it comes configured literally out of the box, and to be frank, I was very pleased with the initial configuration. The by far easiest way to bind the drone to your radio is to plug it into your computer, open Betaflight, go to the CLI tab, and type bind. Hit enter. I love this, it makes binding so easy. Now that the Mobula is in bind mode, go to your radio. In my tests, I was using the Taranis X Lite, but I also bound it to a Taranis QX7, and the process is identical. After creating a new model, start the bind process from the radio. That's it. The Mobula will blink a few times to indicate a successful bind, and you can read about the exact meanings of the different flashes in the manual. Alternatively, you can press the bind button at the bottom of the flight controller if you prefer to bind that way. In my setup, I set up 3 switches mapped to aux1, aux2 and aux3. The Mobula7 HD's ESCs support D-Shot, and as such you can use turtle mode, or flip over after a crash as it's noted in Betaflight, and beeping through ESCs instead of a buzzer. In my case, I set up aux1 for arming on one switch and aux2 for flight modes, acro and angle, and aux3 for turbo mode, which has proven to be very useful. Do note that the Mobula7 HD listing in Banggood warns about some potential issues with Betaflight, especially if you're using the latest version of the configurator, which at this moment is 10.5.0 or 10.5.1. I've been using the Betaflight configurator 10.4.0 and I had no issues whatsoever. As far as the rest of the configuration, I touched nothing on the ports tab, pretty much nothing on the configuration tab as well. Do note that the Mobula7 HD comes configured in props in, which is maybe different than some of your other quads if you're running props out. I know in my case I run most of my quads in props out mode, so do pay attention to that if you're swapping props. I'm also using the FrSky built-in receiver version. So in my configuration I have selected the SPI RX support and FrSky X. On the PID tuning tab, I didn't touch any of the configuration. Finally, we come to the fun part, flying. I love flying this thing. One of the best things about this micro quad is the fact that it comes with a bit of weight and is such as just a bit more floaty than most micros, which is great for freestyle flying. If you try the Mobula7 HD, you will be amazed by how much it feels and flies like a 5-inch quad. It's really cool. In my initial testing, I flew the Mobula7 HD in a few different settings. I flew at the top of a hill in Plovdiv, Bulgaria at 272 meters above sea level, and dealing with some pretty strong winds at the top. After gaining about 30 meters of altitude, the Mobula was still behaving decently. Then I had a smooth flight in a park with about average humidity, no wind, and a temperature in the early 20s. And then I had another really windy flight by the Bulgarian seaside. Also, since then, I've done a number of other flights, so you can check out the footage. All of those flights were carried out on a 2S battery by Beta FPV, which I found really delightful to fly, which brings us naturally to the next section on batteries. As I mentioned, the Crazy Bee F4 Pro V2 is 1 to 3S capable. I tried running the Mobula7 HD on a 1S battery, a little bit heavier GNB 450 milliamp hour LiPo. That didn't fare well. I couldn't really get a whole lot out of it, but that's fine because you probably don't really have any reason to try to run the Mobula7 HD off of a 1S battery. I also tried running it on 2S. 2S works really good, both indoors and outside. In my test, I use again the Beta FPV 2S 350 milliamp hour batteries, and I had no issues whatsoever. They fit perfectly, if a bit loose, in the designated space, and I got decent flight times per pack of about 4 minutes, which, if I'm being honest, is pretty cool. Even if I punch the throttle more often, without keeping it at 70% or so all the time, I still got more than 330 minutes of flight time. In terms of 3S, I've only tried the stock battery that comes with the quad, and I'm somewhat on the fence if 3S is really needed. Don't get me wrong, the quad flies really good. If you consider raw performance, there is no denying that 3S zips around faster, in fact. However, Happy Model recommends that you limit the throttle scaling to 75% if you're running the 10,000 kV motors to reduce the risk of burning ESCs. You can do that by pasting the following commands in Betaflight: set throttle limit type to scale and set throttle limit percent to 75 and save that. Try it out for yourself and see what you prefer. I'll come back later with more updates on 3S batteries as I try more 3S batteries on the Mobula7. But for now, I really just prefer flying 2S with no throttle limits. There are a number of upgrades that you could do to your Mobula7 HD. In fact, if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend joining the Mobula7 owners group on Facebook. There's a lot of people there that share the upgrades they've done to their drones. But a couple of things I would like to share at this point is the props upgrade. I upgraded my Mobula7 HD into the Gem Fan props, and the quad immediately got just a little bit quieter, but it was also behaving better in turns. Overall, I think the flying improved with those props. Another upgrade is adding a capacitor to your XT30 or purchasing such a connector off of Banggood. I haven't done this upgrade yet myself, but it's officially recommended by Happy Moto, and it should prevent voltage spikes. Could be especially useful to do, especially if you're running 3S batteries. In conclusion, I can easily recommend this quad to almost anyone who can afford it. Whether you're new to the hobby or an experienced pilot and just want to fly safely in somewhat public areas, such as parks, this quad is indeed a great fit. Simply put, the Mobula7 HD carries out on the momentum of its predecessors, the Snapper 7 and the original Mobula7, and innovates on top of that. You can't go wrong if you pick one up. The top of the line parts make sure you get a quality build. Sure, the Mobula7 HD is a bit heavier than its predecessors, and as such, maybe not just as snappy, but it does offer for better freestyle, similar to the experience you would get with a 5-inch quad. On top of it all, if cine whoops are your thing, I'd crown the Mobula7 HD the queen of the cine whoops for 2019. I know I for sure absolutely love flying parks and playgrounds safely and getting that sweet 1080p 60 FPS footage. So if you're in the market for such a micro quad, definitely grab yourself a Mobula7 HD and you won't be sorry. Happy flying!